In every rustle of leaves in an ancient forest, in the deep silent pools of a winding river, in the flicker of a lantern's light on a lonely road at dusk, there lies a world just beyond the veil of our own. Japan, a land of serene beauty and quiet reverence, has long held a deep understanding of this hidden world. It is a realm populated by creatures born from nature, from fear, and from wonder. They are the shapeshifters, the spirits, the demons, and the ghosts known as yokai. Some are wise and benevolent. Others are mischievous tricksters, and some are the embodiment of our deepest anxieties. Join us as we pull back the curtain and step into the shadows to meet the folkloric creatures of Japan that have all the abilities attributed to the yokai. None captures the imagination quite like the power to change form, toke among us, unseen, wearing a human face. These are the tricksters and thief-deceivers, beings who blur the line between the animal kingdom and the human world, between nature and civilization. And of all the shapeshifters that populate the folklore of Japan, perhaps none is more iconic or complex than Theketsun. At a glance, they are simply foxes, but to see them as such is Thomas the deep current of magic that flows within them. Kitsune are ancient fox spirits whose power, wisdom, and abilities grow with the passage of time. They are creatures of profound duality, capable of being either sacred messengers or cunning deceivers, benevolent protectors, or seductive manipulators. Their true nature is often as shifting as the forms they choose to wear. In their animal form, a young kitsune is indistinguishable from any other fox, but as they live for a century, then another, their spiritual power blossoms, and this growth is marked by the appearance of another tail. The most powerful, wise, and ancient among them possess 9 tails, a sign of immense spiritual energy and near divine status. But their most celebrated and feared ability is their mastery of transformation. A kitsi can flawlessly assume a human guise, most often that of a stunningly beautiful young woman, though they may also appear as a dignified nobleman or a humble elderly man. Their illusions are said to be perfect, their mannerisms so natural that they can live among humans for years without their true identity ever being suspected. Beyond physical transformation, their powers are vast and varied. They can conjure kits or fox fire, ghostly flames that flicker in the darkness to lure or mislead travelers. They can weave intricate illusions, create phantom sounds, and even influence human dreams. Some are known to practice a form of spiritual possession known as kitsunuki, where a fox spirit enters a human body, often causing erratic behavior. Despite their power, they are not invincible. Kitsune are said to have a deep-seated fear of dogs, which can often see through their disguises. And the reflection in a mirror or a strong, unexpected smell can sometimes be enough to reveal a flash offer or a hidden tale, shattering their carefully crafted illusion. The cultural importance of the kitsune is woven deeply into the spiritual fabric of Japan. On one hand, they are revered as sacred messengers of Inari Okami, the Shinto deity of rice, prosperity, and commerce. This is why statues of foxes are found guarding the gates of thousands of inara shrines across the country. In this role, they are seen as agents of harvest and household well-being, benevolent figures who ensure a plentiful crop and a thriving business. Worshippers leave offerings of fried tofu, said to be their favorite food, in hopes of earning their favor. Yet on the other hand, Theketsun is a quintessential trickster, as tricksters. They serve as mirrors to humanity, testing our virtues and punishing our vices. They delight in humbling the arrogant, exposing the greedy, and making fools of the boastful. Their stories often carry a moral weight, warning that appearances can be deceiving and that desire can cloud one's judgment. Countless tales speak of kitsune marrying human men. In these stories, the fox spirit often becomes a perfect loving wife and mother. One of the most famous tales is that of Kunaha, a kitsune who marries a man and bears him a son only to have her identity accidentally revealed. Forced to return to the wild, she leaves behind a heartbreaking farewell poem for her beloved family. These tales explore themes of otherness, the loneliness of those who live on the margins of society, and the sorrow of a love that transcends the boundaries between two worlds. The origins of kitsune law are ancient, appearing in early Buddhist and court anecdote from as far back as the 8th century, with some inspiration drawn from similar fox spirit tales on the Asian mainland. Over the centuries, their stories grew and evolved, solidifying their dual role. The sacred connection to Inari anchored their benevolent side, while urban storytellers and kabuki theater expanded their roles as clever tricksters and tragic lovers. Today, the kitsune remains one of the most beloved and recognizable figures in Japanese folklore. From the nine-tailed beast in the anime Naruto to countless characters in video games and manga, the fox spirit continues to enchant the world with its potent blend of wisdom, danger, and otherworldly beauty. The humble house cat walks a quiet line between the wild and the domestic and independent spirit sharing our homes. In Japanese folklore, this familiar presence holds the potential for something far more mysterious and powerful. When a cat lives a very long life, is cherished for many years, or endures great mistreatment, it can transform into a yokai. These supernatural felines are known as Bakenio, and in their more advanced form, Nakamata. They take the comforting presence of a pet and infuse it with the eerie power of the supernatural, reflecting anxieties about what truly lies behind those knowing, watchful eyes. Febakenio, which translates to change cat, is the first stage of this transformation to as a cat ages. It begins to develop supernatural abilities. IT may learn to walk on its hind legs, speak human languages, and even shapeshift, often taking the form of its owner or another human. Bakenio are known for their mischievous and sometimes malevolent behavior. A Bakeno might be seen wearing a towel on its head and dancing, a popular image from the Edo period. They have been known to lick up lamp oil, which was made from fish oil, and can even create ghostly fireballs to haunt the household. Their motivations can range from simple playful pranks to acts of dark revenge if the cat was abused in its life. If Abakenio continues to live and its power continues to grow, it can evolve into the far more fearsome Nikum or forked cat. The most defining physical characteristic of a Nekamarta is its tail, which splits into two identical tails. This forked tail is a visible mark of its immense age and potent magical power. Nakamata are generally larger and more powerful than Barco, and their nature is almost always malevolent. While some were said tod well in the mountains, living like wild beasts, the most terrifying were those born from domestic cats who held a deep grudge. A necroter's powers extend far beyond simple trickery. They are said to possess the dark art of necromancy. Ableto reanimate corpses and control them like puppets, creating terrifying poltergeist effects within the home of those who wronged them. They can place powerful curses, stir nightmares, and bring utter chaos to a household, especially one where cruelty and neglect created their desire for vengeance. The cultural importance of these cat yokai is tied to the anxieties of domestic life. They represent the fear of the familiar turning against you. The idea that the love and care given to a pet might only be returned as betrayal. A Bakeneko impersonating its owner could sow discord and confusion, turning a household upside down from within. The Nika Marcher's ability to command the dead voices, a deeper fear of hidden rot and unresolved grievances within a family. The forked tail itself became a powerful symbol. It represented the accumulation of memory and experience over a long life. A reminder that even the most humble creatures can with time become forces that demand respect and fear. This belief became so widespread that during the Edo period, there was a folk practice of bobbing a cat's tail at a young age with the idea that a short tail would prevent it from ever forking and thus prevent the cat's transformation into a Yodashkai, in the deep, misty mountains of Japan, near secluded waterfalls and dark forest shrines. Travelers are warned to be wary of exceptional beauty today. Captivating young woman offering shelter, a warm cup of tea, or the enchanting melody of a biwa may not be what she seems. She could be the Jerumo, the entangling bride, a fearsome yokai that perfectly blends seduction and horror. The Jorgamo is a giant spider that, after living for 400 years, develops magical powers. The most potent of which is the ability to shape-shift into a beautiful woman to prey on unsuspecting humans. The Jagamo is a master of deception in her human form. She is the image of refinement and grace, possessing an alluring charm that few can resist. She often targets young, handsome samurai or woodcutters who have lost their way. She lures them to her beautifully constructed home, which is in reality nothing more than an elaborate illusion woven from silk and magic. There she will entertain her guest, her every movement calculated and precise. She binds their wrists and ankles with shimmering threads that look like elegant silk cords, a ritualistic act often snaring her prey. Once her victim is caught, they feel no fear, only a strange sense of warmth and drowsy contentment as she slowly drains them of their life force over several days. She may summon swarms of smaller spiders to act as her attendants, and her webs are strong enough to trap even the strongest of men. When her true form is revealed, the beautiful illusion shatters. She is a Norb weaver spider of unnatural size with sharp, venomous fangs, lacquer black legs, and often a brightly colored abdomen patterned like an ornate kimono sash. Even a glimpse of this form is enough to break the spell of her beauty and reveal the terrifying predator beneath. The Horigamo is a powerful cultural parable about the nature of appetite and desire. She is a stark warning against being seduced by charm that has no roots or pursuing desire without discernment. Her story cautions travelers against the beautiful unknown places where one is a stranger and vulnerable. The Spider Bride also reflects complex societal views, particularly fears and admiration for the skilled women of the urban entertainment quarters in historical Japan. Like these women, the Hagamo was a master of performance and patronage, weaving webs of entanglement that were delicate, beautiful, and utterly inescapable. Her web is not just the silk she spins, that it is the city itself, a place of seductive illusion where one can easily become trapped. Legends of Yurgamuften tie her to specific locations. Most famously, the Yodon Falls in Izu Point. One popular tale tells a woodcutter who drops his axe into the waterfall's basin. A beautiful woman appears and returns it to him, making him promise to never tell anyone what he saw. He keeps the promise for a time, but eventually racked with guilt and confusion, he confesses the story to a crowd. As soon as he does, he falls into a deep death-like sleep, dragged into the waterfall by invisible threads, never to be seen again. Other stories are tales of survival, where a heroic warrior sees through the Shurigam's illusion binding her spider-like shadow and manages to fight his way free. The image of the Spider Bride was codified by artists in the Edo period and spread nationwide through folklore collections. The Shurigamo has since become a staple of Japanese horror and fantasy. She appears in video games, anime, and films. Her story a timeless and chilling reminder that the most beautiful faces can hide the most monstrous appetites, and that the most delicate-looking webs are often the strongest. By day, they are indistinguishable from anyone else. They are beautiful wives, quiet neighbors, and ordinary members of society living perfectly normal lives. But when night falls and they drift off to sleep, something extraordinary and deeply unsettling happens. Their necks begin to stretch, elongating like smooth, pale bamboo, allowing their heads to detach from the constraints of their sleeping bodies and wander freely. These are the Rokurokubi, one of the strangest and most visually memorable yokai in Japanese folklore. While the body of a Rokurokubi remains peacefully asleep in bed, its head, perched atop its impossibly long and flexible neck, embarks on nocturnal adventures, driven by a deep-seated curiosity or a hidden mischievous nature. The head drifts through the house, peeking through screens, eavesdropping on private conversations, and startling late-night wanderers. They have been known to lick the oil from lamps, whisper threats to sleeping people, and generally cause an eerie, unsettling nuisance. the experience of being Orokuro Cubivaries. Some are fully aware of their nightly activities and may even revel in the freedom it brings. For many others, however, the condition is a curse. They have no memory of their next wanderings, waking up with only a vague sense of fatigue, a sore throat, and strange fragmented dreams of seeing their own room from impossible angle. It is important to distinguish the Rokubi from a similar, though far more dangerous type of yokai, the new Kubi. While Urukurub's neck stretches, Anyakub's head detaches from the body completely, flying about on its own. These beings are often predatory and violent, known to attack humans and drink their blood. The Rokurukubi, by contrast, are more pitiable and strange than truly malevolent. Their condition is often described as an affliction that can be hereditary, accidental, or the result of a hidden curse. Culturally, the Rakurabe gives form to the fear that a dutiful and composed exterior can hide unruly, untamable desires. They are a powerful symbol for the strain of conforming to strict social roles, especially for women in crowded pre-modern Japanese towns where composure and obedience were demanded. The stretching neck becomes a vivid visual metaphor for the soul slipping its leash when the household sleeps, for unchecked curiosity, for gossip, and for the part of the self that refuses to be confined by social duty. This unique blend of horror and humor makes them fascinating figures. The image of a head snaking its way through a house is deeply creepy. Yet the idea of it getting tangled or caught in comical situations lends itself to humorous stories and illustrations. The concept of the Rakuro Kubi was popularized during the Edo period through yokai encyclopedias, art, and kabuki theater, which could use stage tricks to create the stunning visual ofa, stretching neck. One classic story tells of a samurai who discovers that his wife is a Roro Kubi. Horrified, he watches as her head snakes out of their room at night to lick the oil from the household lamps. He plots to divorce her, but she cleverly anticipates his every move, ultimately revealing that she knew he was watching all along and shaming him for his lack of acceptance. The Rokurok's striking visual has ensured its lasting place in popular culture. It is a recurring monster in Japanese horror films, such as the anthology film Quaden, and appears frequently in anime and manga. It remains a fascinating exploration of human duality, the strange and wild parts of our psyche that come out top play only when the rest of the world and even our conscious selves are fast asleep. Some yokai announce their presence with a terrifying roar or a ghostly chill. Others are monstrous apparitions that stalk the lonely wilderness. And then there is the Nurari Hyen, a yokai whose power is so subtle, so audacious that its victims often don't even realize anything is amiss. The Nurari Hyen isn't a creature of brute force, but of supreme social stealth. He is typically depicted as a small, elegant old man with a gourd-shaped head and fine silk kimono. At dusk, as the day blurs into night, he simply slips into a busy household, walks in as if he owns the place, and makes himself at home. The Nurari Hyen's primary ability is his projection of overwhelming authority. When he enters a house, the family and servants are so struck by his calm, important-looking demeanor that they simply assume he must be the master of the house, or perhaps a guest of such high status that his presence requires no explanation. They instinctively bow, serve him tea, offer him tobacco, and attend to his needs without a single question. The true master of the house may be present, but even they feel a strange loss of will, unable to protest as this mysterious old man takes their seat of honor. The Nararahain will relax, enjoy the hospitality, and then just as quietly as he arrived, he will vanish back into the evening crowds, leaving the household in a state of bewildered confusion. His power is purely social and psychological. He does not fight for a place at the head of the table. He simply takes it, and the world seems to rearrange itself to accommodate his assumed status. This makes him a brilliant satire of authority, status, and the arbitrary nature of social hierarchies. He's the embodiment of entitled power that appears from nowhere, consumes the labor of others, and offers nothing in return. On a more mystical level, The Nerari Heian is seen as the spirit of the twilight hour itself. He represents that liminal moment when roles blur, when the day's certainties fade and a stranger's sheer confidence can make a home forget itself. This innate aura of command is likely why in some later folklore compilations, the Nerari Heian was elevated to the status of supreme commander of all yokai. It's a title that makes perfect sense for Abing, who can effortlessly command respect and obedience without lifting a finger. He leads the Hayaki Yagyu, the night parade of 100 demons, a chaotic procession of yokai that marches through the streets on certain summer nights. As their leader, he doesn't need to be the strongest or the most terrifying. He simply needs to be Theon everyone instinctively follows. The origins of the Nerari Heian are found in Edo period folklore collections and art. His name itself offers a clue to Tohi's nature. Nerari is an onomatopoeic word for slipping or slithering. Andean is a word for floating or drifting. He's the one who slips in and drifts away. Some coastal traditions link his image to a type of round, slippery sea creature, perhaps a variety of jellyfish or octopus, which suits his talent for sliding into places where he does not belong. In modern media, the Nerari Heian's role as a leader of yokai has been greatly expanded. He is the central figure in the popular manga and anime series Nura, Rise of the Yokai Clan, where the protagonist is his grandson, destined to inherit his title as the master of all spirits. The Nerari Heian remains one of the most intriguing and clever yokai, a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest power isn't a monstrous claw or a magical spell, but the unshakable confidence to act like you belong. The natural world of Japan, its mist-shrouded mountains, its dense ancient forests, and the vast powerful sea that surrounds it is not merely an inert landscape. It is alive. The very heart of the Shinto faith is the concept of animism. The belief fate is spirit, a divine essence, resides in all things. A towering, centuries-old tree has a soul. A waterfall thunders with a living voice. A river is not just water, but a powerful entity with a will of its own. It is from this deep reverence and intimate relationship with nature that the water and nature spirits are born. These yokai are the personification of the world's untamable forces. They can be serene and life-giving like a gentle stream, or terrifyingly destructive like a tsunami or a blizzard. They are not simply monsters to be slain. They are the embodiment of nature's profound duality, demanding respect, caution, and a humble understanding of humanity's small place within a much larger and much wilder world. Of all the spirits that inhabit the waterways of Japan, none is more famous or more deeply ingrained in the culture than the Kappa. These amphibious child-sized imps are said to live in rivers, ponds, and irrigation canals, and they represent the dual nature of water itself, playful in life, sustaining one moment, dangerous and deadly the next. The Kappa is a creature of contradictions, a mischievous prankster, a formidable wrestler, a surprisingly skilled physician, and a potential drowning threat to any who are careless or impolite. A Kappa is a strange-looking creature, a bizarre blend of reptile and primate. It has ascally green or blue body, webbed hands and feet perfect for swimming, and a hard turt-like shell on its back. Its face is often beaked and it smells offish. But its most important and vulnerable feature is the small shallow dish or sera on the top of its head. This dish holds a sacred water that is the source of the Kappa's life, force, and power. If the water is spilled and dish dries out, the Kappa becomes severely weakened, even paralyzed until the dish is refilled. This peculiar weakness is the key to surviving an encounter with one. Kappa are obsessed with rules of courtesy and politeness that, if you meet one, the wisest thing to do is to bow deeply. Bound by its own strict etiquette, the Kappa will feel compelled to bow in return, at which point the water will spill from its head, rendering it harmless. Kappa love two things above all else: sumo wrestling and cucumbers. They are incredibly strong for their size and will often challenge travelers to a wrestling match. To refuse is to invite their wrath, but to win is often just as dangerous. Their other great passion gives them their favorite food, and their most common offering, cucumbers at IT, is a long-standing tradition for people to write the names of their family members on cucumbers and toss them into rivers before swimming as an offering to the local kappa to ensure safe passage. But for all their quirky habits, kappa are a serious danger. They're known to pull livestock and even children into the water to drown them. Some tales claim they're vampiric, draining the life force from their victims. This terrifying aspect of the kappa serves a very practical purpose. It personifies the real and ever-present danger of rivers and lakes. Stories of kappa were a memorable and effective way to teach children about water safety, reminding them not to get too close to the riverbank and to respect the power off the currents. Yet, they are not purely evil. In some legends, a kappa that has been bested or shown kindness will offer its services. They are said to be masters of medicine and bone setting, possessing knowledge far beyond that of humans. There are many stories of a kappa teaching its medical secrets to a human as a reward for refilling its head dish or for some other act of compassion. He is the one who slips in and drifts away. Some coastal traditions link his image to a type of round, slippery sea creature, perhaps a variety of jellyfish or octopus, which suits his talent for sliding into places where he does not belong. In modern media, the Nurari Hyan's role as a leader of yokai has been greatly expanded. He is the central figure in the popular manga and anime series Nura, Rise of the Yokai Clan, where the protagonist is his grandson, destined to inherit his title as the master of all spirits. The Nurari Hyan remains one of the most intriguing and clever yokai, a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest power isn't a monstrous claw or a magical spell, but the unshakable confidence to act like you belong. The natural world of Japan, its mist-shrouded mountains, its dense ancient forests, and the vast powerful sea that surrounds it is not merely an inert landscape. It is alive. The very heart of the Shinto faith is the concept of animism. The belief Theda's spirit, a divine essence, resides in all things. A towering, centuries-old tree has a soul. A waterfall thunders with a living voice. A river is not just water, but a powerful entity with a will of its own. It is from this deep reverence and intimate relationship with nature that the water and nature spirits are born. These yokai are the personification of the world's untamable forces. They can be serene and life-giving like a gentle stream, or terrifyingly destructive like a tsunami or a blizzard. They are not simply monsters to be slain. They are the embodiment of nature's profound duality, demanding respect, caution, and a humble understanding of humanity's small place within a much larger and much wilder world. Of all the spirits that inhabit the waterways of Japan, none is more famous or more deeply ingrained in the culture than the kappa. These amphibious child-sized imps are said to live in rivers, ponds, and irrigation canals, and they represent the dual nature of water itself, playful in life, sustaining one moment, dangerous and deadly the next. The kappa is a creature of contradictions, a mischievous prankster, a formidable wrestler, a surprisingly skilled physician, and a potential drowning threat to any who are careless or impolite. A kappa is a strange-looking creature, a bizarre blend of reptile and primate. It has ascally green or blue body, webbed hands and feet perfect for swimming, and a hard turt-like shell on its back. Its face is often beaked and it smells offish. But its most important and vulnerable feature is the small shallow dish or sera on the top of its head. This dish holds a sacred water that is the source of the kappa's life, force, and power. If the water is spilled and the dish dries out, the kappa becomes severely weakened, even paralyzed until the dish is refilled. This peculiar weakness is the key to surviving an encounter with one. Kappa are obsessed with rules of courtesy and politeness that, if you meet one, the wisest thing to do is to bow deeply. Bound by its own strict etiquette, the kappa will feel compelled to bow in return, at which point the water will spill from its head, rendering it harmless. Kappa love two things above all else: sumo wrestling and cucumbers. They are incredibly strong for their size and will often challenge travelers to a wrestling match. To refuse is to invite their wrath, but to win is often just as dangerous. Their other great passion gives them their favorite food, and their most common offering, cucumbers at IT, is a long-standing tradition for people to write the names of their family members on cucumbers and toss them into rivers before swimming as an offering to the local kappa to ensure safe passage. But for all their quirky habits, kappa are a serious danger. They're known to pull livestock and even children into the water to drown them. Some tales claim they're vampiric, draining the life force from their victims. This terrifying aspect of the kappa serves a very practical purpose. It personifies the real and ever-present danger of rivers and lakes. Stories of kappa were a memorable and effective way to teach children about water safety, reminding them not to get too close to the riverbank and to respect the power off the currents. Yet, they are not purely evil. In some legends, a kappa that has been bested or shown kindness will offer its services. They are said to be masters of medicine and bone setting, possessing knowledge far beyond that of humans. There are many stories of a kappa teaching its medical secrets to a human as a reward for refilling its head dish or for some other act of compassion. This turns the relationship with Thekapper and by extension with nature into one of negotiation. Fear of drowning is transformed into a complex relationship where respect, manners, and the offering of a simple cucumber can tame a hazardous landscape and even yield profound rewards. The kappa has been a part of Japanese folklore for centuries, appearing in medieval anecdotes and becoming standardized through the art of the Edo period. Today, the kappa is one of the most recognizable yokai. Though often depicted in a cute, sanitized form as a mascot or cartoon character, its image still serves its ancient purpose. You can still see signs near rivers and lakes in Japan featuring a cartoon kappa warning children of the dangers of the water. A modern continuation of a centuries-old tradition of respecting the powerful cucumber-loving spirits that dwell just beneath the surface in the heart of a Japanese winter, when a world is silenced by a thick blanket of snow and the air is sharp enough to freeze the breath in your lungs. The boundary between beauty and death becomes perilously thin. And gliding across this boundary is the Yuki Honor, the Snow Woman. She is not merely aspirate of winter. She is the embodiment of winter itself, a tea once ethereally beautiful and awfully cold. A figure of silent, deadly grace who appears during the fiercest blizzards on lonely mountain roads. She is most often described as Adel, impossibly beautiful young woman with long, jet black hair that contrasts sharply with her unnaturally pale, almost translucent skin. She wears a poire white kimono and seems to float across the top of the snow, leaving no footprints. Her presence is an omen of a deep and profound cold. Birds and dogs fall silent as she approaches, and her breath is a visible white mist that can freeze a person solid in a matter of seconds. She can appear inside a locked cabin, entering with a gust of icy wind, and her motives are as unpredictable as a winter storm, depending on her mood or the character of the traveler she meets. She may show mercy or she may show none at all. The warmth of a fire or the innocent heat of a newborn child are among the few things said to be able to drive her away. The Yuki Honor is a powerful expression of the awe and fear of winter in a mountainous country. She represents the terrifyingly fine line between survival and death by exposure. She is the choice between the warmth and hospitality of a mountain hut and the unforgiving white wilderness just outside the door. In many stories, she acts as a judge of human character, rewarding those who are humble and honest while punishing the arrogant and cruel. Perhaps the most famous story of the Yuki Honor was immortalized by the writer Lefardio Hearn in his book Quaden. It tells of two woodcutters, one old and one young, who are caught in a terrible snowstorm and take shelter in a hut. In the middle of the night, the Yuki Honor appears. She kills the old man with a single icy breath, but spares a young man, Minikichi, because of his youth and beauty. She makes him swear a solemn oath that he will never speak off what he saw that night. Years pass and Minichichi marries a beautiful gentlewoman named Yuki. They have a happy life and raise several children. But one snowy evening, looking at his wife, Minoichi is reminded of the strange event from his past. He says to her, "You look so much like the beautiful, terrifying spirit I once met." In an instant, his wife's face changes. "It was I," she shrieks, her voice filled with rage. "You broke your promise." She declares that if it were not for their sleeping children, she would kill him on the spot. With a final warning to care for them, she transforms into a fine white mist and vanishes out of the smoke hole of the roof, disappearing forever into the storm. This tale highlights the Yuki honors role as a tragic bride figure, exploring themes of love across the divide between a human and the inhuman and the terrible price of a broken promise. She is a classic figure in Japanese folklore and horror, appearing in countless films, anime, and games. The Yuki honor endures as a hauntingly beautiful and deeply chilling reminder that in the depths of winter, the most captivating beauty can also be the most dangerous. The coastline of Japan is a place of dramatic and often treacherous beauty with rugged cliffs, powerful tides, and shores littered with sharp, slippery rocks. For the fishermen and boatmen who make their living from the sea, these coasts hold a special kind of danger. And that danger is given a single terrifying face. The ISO honor the Seacoast Woman. She is a predatory spirit who haunts the rocky shores at night. Allure for the unwary and a grim embodiment of the ocean's relentless pull. The ISO honors method is one of cruel deception. She appears to lone fishermen as a beautiful soaked woman, her long dark hair clinging to her like wet seaweed. She calls out from the surf with a soft, pleading voice, begging for help. A kind-hearted or desire-driven man who approaches her is sealing his own doom. As he gets closer, she reveals her true nature. Her hair and hand become as strong as thick, wet ropes, ensnaring him. Her face contorts, revealing sharp fangs or claws, and she drags her victim into the churning gunderdow, smashing him against the rocks until he is dead. Some legends say she then drinks his blood or drains his life essence with a final cold kiss. One of the most chilling details of her lore is the disconnect between her appearance and her true form. Even while she looks like a beautiful, helpless human woman, the light from a lantern will reveal her true shadow, that of a hunched, monstrous sea creature. This detail turns her into a powerful test of a sailor's perception and common sense. A wise man will see the monstrous shadow and know to flee, while a foolish one will be blinded by its beautiful face and be lost to the waves. The SO honor is a powerful concentration of all the real-world dangers of the coast. She is a living warning sign. Her legend cautions sailors against taking shortcuts through dangerous waters in bad weather and reminds anyone walking the shore at night to be wary of slippery rocks and the unforgiving pull of the tide. More than that, she gives a name and a sterito the deep grief and anxiety of coastal communities. In villages where families wait on the shore for boats that never return, the ISO honor provides a narrative for their loss. The missing men were not simply victims of an accident. They were taken by the spirits off the shore, turning a random tragedy into a story that the living can tell and understand. Her legends are most common along the rugged, storm-battered coasts of Kyushu and western Japan. While not as universally famous as the Kappa, she is a deeply rooted regional yokai whose story is tied directly to the geography she haunts. Her modern appearances are fewer than some of her more famous counterparts, but she remains a potent symbol of the sea's seductive and destructive power. The ISO honor is that killing reminder that the ocean steppes hold more than just fish, and that sometimes the most dangerous thing on a lonely shore is the sound of a beautiful woman crying for help. In times of great uncertainty, when fear of the unknown spreads like a plague, people have always sought symbols of hope and protection. In the vast pantheon of Japanese yokai, there is one creature whose entire purpose is to serve this very need. It is not a trickster, nor is it a monster. It is the Amobai, a strange and benevolent sea, being whose appearance is a powerful omen and whose image is appetent charm against sickness. The Ubume's appearance is one of the most unique in all of folklore. It is depicted with the body of a fish covered in shimmering scales from the neck down. It has long flowing hair, a face with a bird-like beak, and most distinctively three leg-like fins that it stands upon. It is said to emerge from the sea glowing with a brilliant light, a truly otherworldly sight. Unlike many yokai woes, histories are lost to time. The Ubume has a remarkably precise origin. The earliest and only known record of its appearance comes from a woodblock printed news sheet from the year 1846. It tells of a government official who was sent to investigate a mysterious light that had been appearing nightly in the sea off the coast of Higo province. When he arrived, the Ubume emerged from the water, introduced itself, and delivered a prophecy. It foretold 6 years of bountiful harvests, but also warned that a terrible epidemic would follow. It then delivered a crucial instruction. Quickly draw a picture of me and show it to people. Having delivered its message, it disappeared back into the sea. The key to the Ubume's power is not in any action it takes, but in the action it inspires in others. Its power is saprotropic, meaning it has the ability to ward off evil. The instruction to draw its image and share it is a form of communal ritual. It is an act that transforms passive fear of an oncoming disaster into a proactive collective effort of care. By drawing and displaying the Ubume's picture, communities are not just hoping for magical protection. They are participating in an act of information sharing and mutual support. It links the health of the land and sea directly to a sense of civic responsibility, giving ordinary people a symbol of compassion and hope that requires no special priest or powerful official success. For over 170 years, the Ubume remained a relatively obscure figure known mostly to folklorists and historians. But in early 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic began to sweep across the globe, this strange three-legged sea creature made a spectacular return. A Japanese university shared the 1846 woodblock print online, and the story of the Ubume went viral. Artists all over Japan and then the world began creating and sharing their own illustrations of the yokai on social media under the hashtag Ubume. It was made into cookies, keychains, and even featured in public health announcements. The ancient ritual was reborn for the digital age. Once again, in a time of widespread sickness and anxiety, people turned fear into a collective act of creativity and hope, sharing the image of the Ubume to protect themselves and others. This sudden resurgence transformed a meaner, long-forgotten yokai into an international symbol of resilience and one of the most important folkloric figures of our time. The ground beneath our feet feels solid, stable, and permanent. But in Japan, an archipelago located on one of the world's most active fault lines, this stability is an illusion. The terrifying, unpredictable violence of an earthquake has been a part of life for millennia. And to give this terrifying force a face and a name, folklore imagined a colossal creature living in the mud and darkness beneath the islands. This creature is the Namazu, ancient catfish whose slightest thrash can make the entire nation tremble. According to legend, the Namazu is an enormous catfish that dwells deep within the earth. Its immense size and power are normally kept in check by Shinto god, typically Kashima, the deity of thunder and martial arts. Kashima restrains the giant catfish by pinning it to the ground with a massive sacred stone called the Kanameshi, or foundation stone. This stone is the linchpin that holds the world in place. However, the god cannot maintain his vigil forever. When Kushima becomes tired, distracted, or leave his post for a meeting of the gods, his grip on the foundation stone loosens. It is in these moments that the Namazu is free to move. It arches its powerful back, rides its body, and the result is a devastating earthquake on the surface. It was said that the moral state of humanity could influence Thegid's vigilance. Periods of widespread greed, corruption, and social disorder were thought to distract Kushima, allowing the Namazu to stir. While the Namazu was a terrifying symbol of destruction, its cultural role became far more complex and fascinating following the Great Ani Idedo earthquake of 1855. This catastrophic event leveled huge parts of the city of Idedo, modern-day Tokyo, and resulted in a massive loss of life. In the aftermath, a new genre of woodblock print known as Namazu orchid fish prints exploded in popularity. In these prints, the Namazu was often depicted not as a simple villain, but as a force of yaoi or world rectification. The earthquake, for all its horror, had created a massive economic shift. The wealthy, who had hoarded their money, saw their storehouses destroyed. The poor, meanwhile, found a sudden abundance of work. Carpenters, roofers, blacksmiths, and porters were in high demand to rebuild the city, and money began to flow from the rich to the working class. The Namazu, he captured this idea perfectly. They showed common people celebrating and even worshiping the Namazu, while the wealthy elite tried desperately to hold it down. The catfish became a symbol of rough justice, a chaotic agent of social reset that punished the complacent and rewarded the industrious. These prints were a form of political satire and social commentary, giving the people a way to process the disaster, not just as a tragedy, but as a violent trebalancing of a society that had become unfair. The Namazu endures as the primary cultural symbol for earthquakes in Japan. It appears on modern emergency preparedness pamphlets and educational materials. Its image a potent and instantly recognizable shorthand for seismic danger. The Poka copyright Mon Whiskishwith, its distinctive whisker shape and ability to cause tremors, is a direct homage to this powerful mythological creature. The Namazu is a profound example of how folklore can take the most terrifying and uncontrollable force of nature and imbue it with meaning, politics, and even a strange, destructive form of hope. Deep within the primeval forests of Japan, where sunlight struggles to pierce the dense canopy and moss carpets the forest floor, there exists a spirit that is the very soul of the woods. These are the Kadama, the ancient and venerable spirits of the trees. They do not inhabit the forest as a whole so much as they live within individual trees, turning a simple trunk and branches into a living, breathing entity with an agency all its own. To harm a tree inhabited by a Kadama is to invite swift and often terrible misfortune. Unlike many yokai, Kadama are almost always invisible. Their presence is not seen, but felt. The most common sign of a kodama is an echo that answers a human voice in the mountains or deep woods. In fact, the word kodama itself can also mean echo, suggesting that the answering sound is the tree spirit speaking back to you. Other signs of their presence are more subtle and mysterious. If a sacred tree is cut, it is said that the sap will run like blood, a sign of the spirit's pain. At night, a faint lantern-like glow deep within a grove might indicate the presence of these spirits. People who sense a powerful kodama presence in a particular tree will often mark it with a shimawa, a sacred rope of rice straw, designating it as a holy object not to be harmed. In return for this respect, kodama can be benevolent, blessing the surrounding area with rainfall, protecting the paths of travelers, and inspiring a sense of restraint and reverence in those who work in the forest. The kodama represents the very heart of Shinto animism. They teach a profound lesson in conservation through reverence, transforming an old tree from a simple natural resource into a respected neighbor. In this worldview, the forest is a community of living beings, and humanity is just one part of it. The careful forestry practices and the ritual bands tied around ancient trunks are not just practical policies. They are acts of maintaining a relationship with unseen, powerful residents of the mountain. Cutting down a tree is not just a physical act. It is a spiritual one with real consequences. The idea of tree spirits is ancient in Japan, appearing in early poetry and folklore collections. Edo Air Encyclopedias helps to codify the popular image and strengthen the link between the tree spirit and the phenomenon of echoes. However, for most of the world, The definitive image of the Kodama was created by Studio Ghibli. The film Princess Mononoke in it. They are depicted as small, white, almost childlike figures with oversized rattling heads and simple black eyes and mouths. They are silent, curious, and a visible indicator of the health of the forest. When a forest thrives, they appear in great numbers. When it dies, they do as well. This depiction, while a modern interpretation, perfectly captures the spirit of the Kodama. They are the quiet, watchful life force of the ancient woods, deserving of our protection and our deepest respect. Where the land meets the sea, in the murky waters of estuaries and the shadows of coastal cliffs, a far more ancient and predatory spirit lurks. Tesso the Ushioni, the ox demon, a brutal and consistently fierce monster whose form and behavior vary by region, but whose venomous and aggressive nature is a constant threat to those who stray too close to the water's edge. The Ushioni is a terrifying composite creature, a nightmarish blend of different animals. The most common depictions give it the ferocious horned head of an ox, but its body is often that of a giant multi-limbed spider or a hard-shell crustacean. Its tail can whip like a scorpion's, and its breath is said to be a cloud of deadly poison. It is a creature of ambush and overwhelming force. It can leap from a rock to a boat in an instant, its powerful legs carrying it across the water with unnatural speed, in some regional legends. The Ushin Honor works in tandem with other coastal yokai, like the ISO Honor or the Theory Honor, the Wet Woman. These female yokai will appear on the shore, sometimes holding a baby, and beg a passerby for help. When the victim is distracted, the Usher bursts from the water to attack. The eyes simply appear, filling the torn patches in the paper. They are silent observers, blinking slowly, their collective gaze following the movements of anyone in the room. They are a constant, unnerving presence, a sign that the home itself has become a witness to its own decay. While they are usually passive, some stories claim that eyes will whisper or that they can even steal the sight of a person who is particularly rude or who stares at them for too long. The most fascinating aspect of the Mukomo Kirin is its cure. There is none for an exorcism or a powerful priest. The solution is simple and mundane. Repair the screen, patch the holes, replace the paper, and the eyes will vanish as mysteriously as they appeared. Let the neglect spread, however, and the screen begins to feel less like a part of the house and more like a living wall of eyes silently judging. This yokai is a powerful and elegant cautionary tale about the importance of care and maintenance that IT suggests that the objects we live with are not inert. They remember how they are treated and they will reflect our neglect back at us. The Mukimaran serves as a constant reminder that taking care of small problems like a tear in a paper screen prevents larger, more unsettling troubles from taking root. Furthermore, it speaks to an important social reality of life in the crowded towns of historical Japan. With thin paper partitions separating homes and rooms, privacy was a fragile concept. Demorin admits a fundamental social truth. People are always watching. In this context, the maintenance of one's home becomes an act of mutual respect. A well-kept screen provides privacy for you and shows respect for your neighbors. A torn one is an invitation for eyes, both real and supernatural, to peer in, popularized by the yokai catalogs of Edo-era artists. The Mocha Mokarin is treated less like a malevolent spirit and more like a consequence. Its simple, profoundly creepy visual has made it an enduring image in horror. A perfect symbol for the deeply human fear of being watched in the one place you are supposed to feel safe. Beyond the world of elusive trickster sand nature's raw spirits lies a realm of beings defined by overwhelming power. These are the demons, ogres, and guardians. Figures that embody humanity's most primal fears and its deepest need for order and protection. They're the monstrous Oni who emerge from the gates of hell. The stern Tenho rule the mountain peaks, and the fearsome deities who test our resolve. These beings are not subtle. They are forces of nature given monstrous form, personifying violent emotions like rage and greed, or acting as terrifying agents of divine punishment. Yet even in their ferocity, they often serve a crucial purpose. They are the dark mirrors that reflect our own vices, the foils against which heroes prove their courage, and the paradoxical guardians who frighten away misfortunito restore a community's moral balance. They're a reminder that sometimes it takes a monster to keep the real monsters at bay. There are few figures in Japanese folklore more fearsome or instantly recognizable than the Oni. These are the quintessential demons or ogres of Japan. Powerful, monstrous beings that embody violent appetite, brutal cruelty, and divine punishment. They dwell at the margins of the human world, in the remote, craggy mountains, in crumbling ruins, or in the fiery depths of Buddhist hell, where they serve as the jailers and tormentors of the damned. Toa human. An encounter with an Oni is a terrifying test of will and spirit. The appearance of an Oni is the stuff of nightmares. They are typically depicted as huge, muscular humanoids with sharp claws, wild, unkempt hair, and one or more horns growing from their foreheads. Their skin is most often a vibrant red, blue, or green, and they are clad in little more than a tigerkin loincloth. Their weapon of choice is the kanabo, a massive iron club studded with spikes, a symbol of their overwhelming and destructive force. This imagery is so potent that it gave rise to a popular Japanese idiom oni nakabo, or an oni withan iron club, which means to be undefeatable or to make something already strong even stronger. The powers of an oni are formidable. They can hurl boulders, summon violent storms, spread disease, and are even capable of shape-shifting to deceive their victims. Culturally, only serve a dual purpose that on one hand, they are the externalization of humanity's most destructive emotions. They are what rage, jealousy, and insatiable greed look like when given monstrous form. In countless folk tales, a wicked or intensely jealous human can be so consumed by their emotions that they transform into an only after death, or sometimes even in life. In this role, they serve as a dark mirror for human vice, a terrifying cautionary tale about the consequences of letting our darkest impulses rule us. Yet, on the other hand, these terrifying figures can also serve a protective role. This paradox is most famously on display during the festival of Setsuban, which marks the beginning of spring. During this festival, people perform a ritual kalamamaki, where they throw roasted soybeans out the doors of their homes or at a family member wearing an Oni mask while shouting Oni Isoda Fukawuchi. Demons out, fortune in. Here, the Oni is not just a monster, Buta vessel for all the bad luck and misfortune of the previous year. By ritually driving it out, the community cleanses itself and resets its moral and spiritual balance, welcoming in good fortune for the year to come. In some festivals and parades, people in fearsome Oni costumes will lead the procession, the idea being that their terrifying appearance will scare away lesser, more malicious spirits. The figure of the Oni draws from a rich tapestry of influences, including Buddhist visions of hell, pre-Buddhist mountain spirits, and the tales of war and chaos from Japan's medieval period. Over time, theater and woodblock prints standardized the classic image we know today: the horns, the tiger skin, and the iron club. The Oni remains a powerful presence in modern culture, a staple in anime, manga, and video games like the Onimusha series. They are the ultimate adversary, a symbol of brute strength that continues to test the heroes of both ancient legends and modern stories. High on the mist-covered peaks of Japan's mountains in the shadows of ancient cedar trees dwell the Tengu, powerful and proud spirits of the wilderness. Part trickster and part stern master, the Tengu are complex beings that walk the line between the divine and the demonic. They are known to meddle in human affairs, especially to punish those who are arrogant or who defile their sacred mountain homes. But they are also renowned as masters of martial arts, sometimes sharing their secret knowledge with worthy warriors and aesthetics. There are two main types of Tengu. The older, more bird-like form is the Kasu Tengu, or crow Tengu. These beings have the head and beak of a crow, feathered wings, and a human-like body. They're skilled swordsmen and often serve as messengers or soldiers for their more powerful brethren. The more common and iconic image today is that of the Denu or Great Tennu. These Tennu appear more human, but are distinguished by their bright red faces, fierce expressions, and most famously their incredibly long noses. They often wear a garb of a Yamabushi, the aesthetic mountain hermits of Japan, and carry a magical fan made of feathers that can summon hurricane-force winds. All Tengu possess an array of supernatural powers. They can communicate telepathically, create illusions, move at uncanny speeds, and are masters of sword fighting. The Tengu's primary role in folklore is that of a divine enforcer against human hubris. They despise arrogance, especially among Buddhist monks and samurai who have become proud of their knowledge or status. A Tengu will delight in playing tricks on such individuals, leading them astray with illusions, tying them to the top of tall trees, or subjecting them to humiliating pranks to teach them a lesson in humility. Their connection to the mountains makes them fierce protectors of the wilderness. Anyone who cuts down a sacred tree or disrespects a mountain shrine risks incurring their wrath. Despite their mischievous and sometimes punishing nature, Tengu are also revered as keepers of profound knowledge, particularly concerning swordsmanship and military strategy. One of the most famous figures in Japanese history, the legendary warrior Minamoto no Yashitsune, was said to have learned his unparalleled sword skills from Sojobo, the king of the Tengu in the forests of Mount Kurama. This aspect of their law positions them not just as tricksters, but as stern teachers who will only impart their secrets to those who are disciplined, respectful, and worthy. The origins of the Tengu are a blend of different beliefs. They are thought Tohavi evolved from a combination of Achene's dog-like mountain demon called the Taengo, or heavenly dog, and native Japanese beliefs in mountain spirits. Early on, they were seen as demons off-were and harbingers of disaster. But their image was later shaped by the culture of the Yamabushi, who spent their lives training in the mountains and were thought to gain supernatural powers. The Tengu's ambivalence being both a source of danger and instruction perfectly captures the double lesson of the wilderness itself. Their distinctive masks are still a common sight in Japanese festivals, theaters, and adjus. A powerful symbol of the wild, untamable intelligence of the mountains that on the desolate fringes of society, far from the warmth of a village and the safety of the main roads, lives a figure born of desperation and monstrous hunger. She is the Oni Barber, the Demon Hag, a solitary crone who lurks in a remote hut or a dark cave, preying on the vulnerable travelers who are unfortunate enough to cross her path. She is a chilling embodiment of the fears of famine, social abandonment, and the terrifying potential for cruelty that can arise when a person is cast out and forgotten. The Oni Barber most often appears as a ragged, elderly woman, a figure that might otherwise inspire pity. But her eyes shine with a cold, predatory intelligence, and hidden beneath her withered lips are teeth as sharp as knives. She can move with a nearly unnatural speed and is often skilled in the use of charms and deception, able to turn a kindly, welcoming face into a mask of predation in an instant. Her methods vary. She might offer a lost traveler shelter for the night, only to murder them in their sleep. In other tales, she takes on-service jobs in mansions or samurai households, hiding her true nature toget close to her victims, particularly pregnant women whose unborn children she seeks to devour. The Oni Barber is a powerful and disturbing symbol. She represents the cost of cruelty to strangers and the societal tendency to demonize those who live outside of accepted norms, especially older women who have lost the protection of a family. In a society where famine was a recurring horror, she is the personification of starvation pushed to its most monstrous conclusion. But her story is not always one of pure evil. In some tellings, her monstrousness is born off a profound tragedy or a desperate act, and she can be subdued not by a sword, but by an act of compassion or a reminder of her own lost humanity. And others. Only vigilance and a strong sword can save the day, making her a stark warning to never let one's guard down. The most famous legend of the Oni Baba is set at Adachi Kahara, It tells the story of a woman who, in a desperate attempt to cure the illness of the noble child in her care, is told by a seer that she must obtain the liver of a living fetus. Years pass, and she waits in a lonely hut by the road. One night, a pregnant noble woman seeks shelter there. The crone murders the woman and her unborn child only to discover a charm on the woman's body. The very same charm she had given to her own daughter years ago before she left for her long vigil. In her grief and horror at having murdered her own flesh and blood, she is transformed completely into a demon. This tale, popularized through No and Kabuki theater, fixed the image of Theonibber in the Japanese imagination as the lone, cannibalistic crone of the moor. A tragic and terrifying figure of profound loss and unspeakable horror. In the dark and forgotten places of the world, in deep mountain caves, shadowed ravines, and the cellars of abandoned mansions, lurks a creature of ancient terror and masterful deception. This is the Tsukigum, the earth spider, a colossal spider yokai that ambushes its prey from the shadows, spinning webs off illusion as easily as it spins silk. It is a classic monster of Japanese folklore. A formidable quarry for heroic warriors whose defeat represents the restoration of order and the triumph of truth over lies. The Tsuchimo is a monstrous beast often depicted with the fanged predatory head off, an oni or a tiger, and a massive heavy body of a spider. Its power lies not just in its physical strength, viewed in its ability to manipulate the minds of its victims. It can cast sticky threads as strong as steel cables towband its prey, spit a debilitating venom, and most terrifyingly create elaborate and convincing illusions that a Tsuchimo can make its lair appear to be a magnificent palace, complete with noble hosts and beautiful servants, alto way and trap unsuspecting travelers or soldiers. Once its victims are ensnared in its web of deceit, it proceeds in them at its leisure. Even in death, it can hold a final horrifying surprise, cutting open the belly of slain. Tsuchimo is said to release a swarm of hundreds of smaller spiders, a sign that the very lair itself was alive all along. The tales of slaying a Tsuchimo are a staple of Japanese heroic legends. They represent the classic struggle often in chaos and disorder into a clear victory for the forces of good. The hero must not only be strong, but also perceptive, able to see through the beautiful traps and recognize the maslies. The most famous Tsuchigumo story involves the legendary warrior Minamoto Yorimitsu, also known as Reicho. While suffering from a mysterious illness, Reicho is visited by a strange monk who is actually Tsuchimo in disguise. Seeing through the illusion, Reicho strikes the creature with his sword. The wounded spider flees, and Reicho and his 4 loyal retainers follow its trail off blood to a great mound where they unearth and finally slay the monstrous beast, restoring Reicho's health and bringing peace to the land. However, the terms such as a darker political history as well. In ancient Japan, it was used as a derogatory term by the ruling Yamato clan to refer to the local clans and tribes who refused to submit to imperial authority. By labeling these dissenting groups as earth spiders, they were effectively dehumanizing them, casting them as monstrous cave-dwelling savages who needed to be exterminated. Because of this history, modern retellings of the Tsuchigumo legend often de-emphasize the monster as a literal spider and instead focus on the themes of illusion and deception, highlighting the idea that the monster may have been nothing more than a label used to justify conquest and persecution with the real people behind the term being. The true victims. The vast, untamed highlands of Japan area place of both great beauty and great peril, where travelers' survival often depends on the mercy of the mountains themselves. Concentrating this power and duality into a single formidable figure is the Yamamba, the mountain crone. She is one of the most complex and fascinating figures in Japanese folklore. At once a terrifying cannibalistic monster and a generous nurturing spirit, she is both the danger and the bounty of the wilderness, a being who might shelter a lost traveler or devour them whole, bless a child with superhuman strength, or test a pilgrim's resolve to its breaking point. The Yamamba's appearance is as variable as her nature. Shiai often described as a wild-looking old woman with long, unkempt white hair and a tattered kimono, sometimes carrying a traveler's pack on her back. But Shiai Salso, a shape, shifter, and may appear as a beautiful young hostess in a lonely mountain lodge, offering a warm meal and a soft bed to a weary traveler before revealing her monstrous true form. She commands the forces of nature, able to conjure snow and mist, and she can communicate with the wild creatures of the mountain. She can conjure food from nothing, a symbol of the mountain's bounty, or swallow her victims in a single gulp, representing its unforgiving dangers. Perhaps the most famous story showcasing her nurturing side is her connection to the legendary hero, the Golden Boy. Kintaro was a child of superhuman strength who was raised in the mountains. And in many versions of the tale, the Yamamba is his mother. She raises him among the animals, teaching him the language of the mountains and nurturing the incredible power that would one day make him one of Japan's most celebrated heroes. This role explores deep-seated cultural anxieties and respect surrounding motherhood, aging, and powerful women who live beyond the strict rules of village society. The Yamamba is a figure that concentrates the power of a place where humans are not in control. She demands respect for the highlands, where survival is a matter of luck and humility. In modern times, performers and artists have reclaimed her as a powerful symbol of female autonomy and untamed creativity. A woman who draws her strength not from society, but from the wild earth itself. Her fame was spread through no drama, picture books, and enduring folklore cycles. While local legends and mountain towns have kept her story alive and ever-changing, renewing her in each generation as the powerful, unpredictable, and eternal spirit of the Japanese mountains. While some yokai are grand, elemental forces, or brutal demons, others are far more intimate, their terror born in the quiet darkness of a bedroom at night, such as the Kurobosu, the Black Monk. A shadowy specter-like being that visits sleeping households, not to cause great destruction, but to steal breath and leave its victims feeling weak, shaken, and deeply unnerved. It is less a battlefield monster and more a household haunting, a face given to the private, creeping terrors of the night. The appearance of the Kurobosu is unsettlingly vague, as if it is made of Shadow itself. Witnesses typically describe a bald, featureless head and a humanoid body completely wrapped in a black robe that seems to swallow the surrounding light. It moves with ascendant, gliding motion, leaning over a sleeping person's bed. Its most common and terrifying actions are to lick the sleeper's face and to draw out their breath, a pattern that folklore has long linked with the real-world experiences of nightmares and sleep paralysis. The victim may feel a heavy weight on their chest, a sense of a malevolent presence in the room, and an inability to move or cry out. All classic symptoms of this frightening sleep disorder. In some regional variations, the Kurobosu is described as being more like a large bear-like creature wearing monk's robes, merging two distinct strands of local tradition into one unsettling figure. The Kurobosu is a powerful symbol for the kind of anxiety, guilt, and fear that can feel intensely personal and isolating. IT give a face to the feeling of being watched, not by an external threat, but by one's own conscience. The monk's form is also significant. In a culture where monks are figures of authority and compassion, the Kurobosu is a corrupted version of that ideal. It satirizes borrowed authority, serving as a dark warning that a monk's robe without genuine compassion is nothing more than an empty, menacing shadow. The Kurobosu's rise to prominence is relatively modern. Its popularity began with a brief report in a major era newspaper about a breath-stealing black monk that was terrorizing a neighborhood in Tokyo. From this single account, the history spread, finding its way into yokai collections and later into popular culture. Reference works on yokai note that the details of the Kurobosu vary widely from one story to the next, and that the name is sometimes used as a catch-all label for other, similarly shadowy monk-like specters. It remains a chilling and effective yokai, a specter born not from grand myths, but from a simple universal fear of what might be leaning over us while we sleep. We have walked with shape-shifters and communed with the spirits of nature. We have faced the raw power of demons and ogres. But now we step into a different kind of Shadow, a place haunted not by the forces of the wild, but by the indelible echoes of human lives. This is the realm of ghosts and supernatural beings, spirits born not from ancient myth, but from the deeply personal and powerful emotions of humanity itself. They are the restless dead, bound to our world by chains of grief, the fire off trail, the sorrow of an unfinished duty, or the cold weight of a vile intent. These are not monsters of the wilderness. They're the ghosts of our own homes, our own streets, and our own histories. They are a haunting reminder that the past is never truly gone, and that the stories of the dead often have one final terrifying chapter left to be told. The most iconic and pervasive of all Japanese spirits is the Yuri, a figure that has defined the very image of the ghost in Japan for centuries. Yuri are in the simplest terms the spirits of the dead, but they're not peaceful souls. They are the restless and the wronged human spirits who are unable or unwilling to pass on to the afterlife because of a powerful lingering emotion or an unfinished task that tethers them to the world of the living. A violent death, a deep and unresolved grief, a promise broken by a lover, or a burning need for vengeance can all create a Yinri. They are bound to a person, a place, or a purpose, and they appear when the memory and regret of their past outweigh the peace of release. The classic appearance of the Yuri was codified by the kabuki theater of the Edo period and has become the quintessential image of the Japanese ghost. They are typically depicted wearing a white burial kimono or katabira, sometimes fastened in the opposite way off the living. Their black hair is long and unkempt, a sign that it has continued to grow after death, and their face is a stark, pale white. Their hands hang limp and lifeless from the wrists, and most famously, they are often depicted without feet, seeming to float or drift through the air. They may also wear a small triangular paper headband or hitai kakushi, a part of traditional burial attire. The presence of a yitre kills the air, causes lantern light to flicker and dim, and can draw the living into the tragic story that created them. They can pass through walls, replay the scene of their death, and will often focus their haunting on a single target until their purpose is fulfilled. Then justice is acknowledged, or the bond is finally cut through prayer and offerings. The Yeri serves a profound cultural role, turning private sorrow into a public lesson about justice, remembrance, and the proper way to treat the dead. They're a terrifying warning that our obligations do not end when a person dies, that a broken promise can curdle into a curse, and a forgotten duty to the deceased remains a social responsibility for the living. The great summer ghost seasons, the memorial services of Aubon, and the sight of paper lanterns floating down a river to guide the spirits are all reflections of this same powerful ethic of care and return. Countless yerstories exist, but one of the most famous is the tale of Owa from Yatsuya-Kaiden. Owa is a faithful wife who is poisoned and disfigured by her cruel, ambitious husband, who then has her murdered so he can marry another. She returns as a terrifying Enri or vengeful ghost, her disfigured face appearing everywhere her husband looks in lanterns and reflections until she has driven him to madness and death, exacting her terrible justice. This story and others like it has had a profound and lasting impact, forming the very bedrock of the modern J horror genre. The ghostly figures of Sadaka from The Ring and Kayako from The Grudge, with their long black hair and jerky, unnatural movements, are direct descendants of the theatrical Yuri of centuries past, proving that the restless dead still have the power to haunt us. Some ghosts are the echo of a single tragic life, but others are born from a chorus of suffering, a collective grievance so vast and terrible that it can only be given a body of truly monstrous proportions. This is the Gashadokuro, a colossal predatory skeleton animated by the grudges of hundreds of people who died off starvation or whose bodies were rot unburied on ancient battlefields. It is famine and neglect given a terrifying walking form. and it rises at night in the loneliest of places to hunt the living for their blood. The Gashadokuro is a creature off-shocking and impossible scale. It towers over houses, its rib cage forming a cavernous broken gate, and its bony hands are large enough to snatch a person from a dark road. Its name is onomatopoeic, meaning starving skeleton, but it also imitates the gachi-gachi sound. Its teeth are said to make despite its immense size. It is said to move with an eerie stealth, its bones making no sound. The only warning of its approach is a loud, inexplicable ringing in the ears of its intended victim. Before they can comprehend the source of the sound, the giant skeleton is upon them, biting off their head in a single gruesome crunch and drinking the blood that sprays forth. It is nearly invincible. Attacking its bones with a sword does little good, for it is not a single entity, but a physical manifestation of a mass grievance. As long as the anger of the nameless dead remains, the Gashadokuro will continue to walk. Its only weaknesses are Shinto charms and shrines which can weaken its hold, or profound acts of compassion that might begin to cool the rage that animates it. Gashadokuro is a powerful moral statement. It insists that disasters like famine and war are not merely natural or political events. They have a spiritual consequence. It is a terrifying reminder that the poor, the forgotten, and those who die without proper rites do not simply vanish from the community's ledger. Their collective anger can fester and return to haunt the living, turning the act of remembering a nameless dead and funding proper burials into a matter of public safety as well as an act of piety. Interestingly, the Gashadokuro is a relatively modern yokai, gaining its name and specific traits in the yokai encyclopedias and art of the mid-century. However, its visual inspiration is much older and can be traced directly to one of the most famous woodblock prints in Japanese art, Utagawa Kinoshi's spectacular tick from the 1840s, Takesha the Witch and the Skeleton Spectre. The print depicts a gigantic skeleton being summoned from a dark void, Tomnes, a pair of samurai. This unforgettable image of an enormous skeleton spectre, combined with older tales of battlefield hauntings, provided the raw material from which the modern legend of the Gashadokuro was built. Its sheer scale and horrific appearance have made it a favorite in modern media. A spectacular monster that perfectly embodies the idea that the forgotten dead do not always rest in peace. Not all ghosts are born of vengeance or terror. Some are born of love. A love so powerful and instinctual that it can transcend the very boundary of death itself. Such is the ghost of the Ubume, the spirit of a mother who died in childbirth or with a young child still utterly dependent on her. Unable to rest while her child is vulnerable, she returns to the world of the living. Driven by a single unstoppable purposito to protect the baby she could not raise, the Ubume typically appears on dark, rainy nights, a sorrowful figure in thin robes, often seeming to be clutching a bundled infant. She will approach a traveler and beg them to hold her child just for a moment. If the person agrees, they find the bundle grows progressively, impossibly heavy, feeling as if it were a boulder in their arms. When they finally manage to look up from the crushing weight, the mother has vanished, and the bundle may have transformed into a stone or a memorial object. In other, perhaps more poignant versions of her tale, the Ubume's ghost will go to a local shop late at night to buy sweets or rice for her living child, paying with real coins. But by the morning, the shopkeeper discovers that the coins have turned into a handful of dead, dry leaves. When they investigate, they find the coins on the mother's grave and are led to the orphan child she was so desperately trying to care for. The Ubume is a deeply moving figure. Her story takes the personal tragedy of maternal death and transforms it into a powerful call for community action and compassion. She is a haunting reminder of the duty of the community to care for its most vulnerable, the orphans and mothers who have been left behind. Her legend was used by storytellers and in sermons to encourage charity for midwives in their work and to promote the practice of tending to roadside Jizo statues. Jizo is a beloved Bodhisattva in Japan who is seen as the special protector of children, particularly those who have died. The Ubume's message is simple, sharp, and heartbreakingly clear. "Nah, child," should be left alone. Records of Ubume visitations appear in the written accounts of early modern towns and temple districts, showing that her story was a real and present part of community life. Unlike the terrifying Enryo, the Ubume is almost never malevolent. She is gentle but persistent, her maternal love giving her the strength to briefly cross back into the world of the living. She is a ghost born not of a curse, but of a bond that even death cannot break. Some spirits have haunted the dark corners of Japan for centuries, but others are born of the anxieties of the modern world, spreading not through ancient scrolls, but through schoolyard rumors and panicked news reports. The most famous of these modern ghosts is the Kuchiake Honor, the Slit-Mouthed Woman, a terrifying urban legend that is a deadly test of politeness, quick thinking, and street wisdom. She appears at dusk, often to people walking home alone, particularly children. She is a woman of average appearance, wearing a trench coat and most importantly a surgical mask, a common sight in Japan that allows her to blend in perfectly. She will approach her target and ask a simple, direct question: "Am I beautiful?" If the victim answers no, she immediately kills them with a large pair-off scissors or a sickle she carries. If the answer yes, she pulls down her mask to reveal her horrific secret. Her mouth has been slit from ear to ear in a grotesque, permanent grin. She then asks her follow-up question: "How about now?" Any answer of no or a scream of terror will result in the victim being cut in half. Answering yes will lead her to slit the victim's own mouth to match her own. To survive an encounter with the Kuchisake Honor, one must break the horrifying logic of her game. Straight answers are a trap. The only hope for escape lies in ambiguity or distraction. Answering her second question with a vague reply like, "You look so-so," or "You're average," can confuse her long enough for one to escape. Other legends say that you can distract her by throwing money or hard amber-colored candies. Biko aiming at her feet, which she will stop to pick up, or by turning her question back on her by asking him if beautiful, which will cause her to become flustered and leave. The legend of the Kuchisake Honor surged to national prominence in the late 1970s, causing a genuine social panic. Story-soft sightings spread like wildfire, and in some towns police patrols were increased and schools advised children to walk home in groups. This makes her a fascinating case study in modern folklore. She is a ghost born off contemporary fears, the anxiety of encountering strangers in anonymous urban spaces, the unease surrounding cosmetic surgery, and the ever-present fear for the safety of children. Her story shows how a community's fear can be channeled into cooperative action, with the legend itself acting as apatrol, reinforcing common-sense safety rules. The Kuchisake Honor is a living legend, one whose story continues to adapt with each new generation, making her arguably the most successful and terrifying monster Japan has created in the last century that I in the hallowed halls of temples and libraries. The greatest treasures are not gold or jewels, but knowledge preserved in sacred books and ancient scrolls. But what happens when the keeper of that knowledge is pushed to an act of ultimate vengeance? The answer is Tesso, the Iron Rat, a horrifying plague of thousands of iron-toothed rodents led by the vengeful spirit of a scholar priest, that a yokai that represents institutional pride and scholarly rivalry twisted into a weapon of mass destruction. The origin of Tesso is placed in the Heian period. It tells the story of a high-ranking monk from the temple of Madeira named Raigo. He performed great spiritual services for the Emperor Hoin, return promised to grant any request. Raigo asked for the funds to build a new ordination platform at his temple. However, the rival temple of Enryakuji, which was immensely powerful, jealously guarded its exclusive right to ordain monks and pressured the emperor to refuse. Enraged and betrayed, Raigo locked himself away, went on a hunger strike, and died, his heart filled with a terrible grudge. His spirit was transformed into a monstrous demon, and he led an army of 84,000 rats, each with teeth and claws of iron, on an assault against the library of Enryakuji. The swarm of Tesso is a vision of unstoppable destruction. At first, they look like ordinary rats, but when they attack, they reveal their steel-bright teeth. They gnaw through thick wooden doors, lacquered shelves, and heavy beams. Their only goal being the annihilation of knowledge. They shred priceless hand-copied sutras and strip sacred storehouses bare overnight, turning 1,000 years of accumulated wisdom into tatters. The spirit of Rigo himself is said to appear in the midst of the swarm, either as a gigantic raider, as a ghostly monk whose very shadow seems to be a writhing nest of tails. Eventually, powerful prayers and guardian deities can turn the tide and drive the rats back, but not before the damage is done, and a library of irreplaceable knowledge lies in ruins. Tesso is a powerful cautionary tale about the dangers of institutional pride and jealousy pushed past the point of mercy. It warns that piety without generosity is a hollow virtue that can easily become a weapon, and that our centers of culture and learning are as vulnerable as people when anger isolode to rule. The shrines that were later built to honor the pacified spirit of Rigo serve a dual purpose. They appease a dangerous spirit, and in doing so, they also honor the sacred and difficult work of preservation, protection, and the repair of knowledge that has been lost. From the sly grin of the kitsune to the sorrowful whisper of a yuri, the creatures of Japanese folklore represent a universe of belief, imagination, and profound human truth. They are shape-shifters and spirits, demons and deities. Each one a thread in a vast and ancient tapestry. We have seen how they embody the raw, untamable power of nature, the earthquake, the blizzard, and the sudden gust of wind. We have seen how they reflect our own deepest emotions, our capacity for vengeance, our paralyzing grief, and our mischievous, playful spirit. They are mirrors reflecting the anxieties and the wisdom of a people deeply connected to the world around them. A world where the sacred and the monstrous often walk hand in hand. Today, these beings are more alive than ever. Their forms may change, their stories adapted for a new generation, but their spirits remain. They're the inspiration for global icons in anime and video games, the honored guests at tangent festivals, and the silent, smiling statues that welcome visitors to a small-town shop. They are a living, breathing part of Japan's cultural soul that a testament to the enduring power of storytelling. The next time you walk a lonely forest path at dusk, see a mysterious flicker of light across a field, or feel an inexplicable chill on a winter's night, remember these tales. The world of the yokai is never truly far away. It waits just beyond the veil in the heart of the Japanese imagination, and perhaps in a quiet, forgotten corner of our own. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the folkloric creatures of Japan. That if you've enjoyed this exploration of mythology and mystery, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. As always, thank you for your time.